Mr. President, we have a tradition in the Senate of referring to our colleagues on the Senate floor during debate as my friend from this state or my friend from that state. And oftentimes the word friend really just means colleague. But there is a fellow senator whom I call friend in the truest sense of the word. And that person, Mr. President, is the senior senator from Connecticut, my dear friend, Senator Joe Lieberman. When Joe Lieberman announced early last year that he would not seek re-election to the Senate, he called himself a lucky guy for having had the opportunity to serve his state and his country. I would contend that it is we in this chamber and the people throughout Connecticut and across our nation who are the ones who are truly fortunate for Joe Lieberman's lifelong commitment to public service, including his 24 years here in the Senate. For more than a decade, it has been my privilege to serve with Joe as the leaders of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Regardless of who has been chairman and who has been ranking member, ours has been a partnership. And indeed, Mr. President, I'll never forget when I was losing the chairmanship because of the change in control, Joe leaning over to me and saying, "Don't worry, Susan, all that will change is that you'll pass me the gavel." It was typical of his thoughtfulness and generosity, and it is not coincidental, Mr. President, that ours is the only committee in the Senate where we do not sit with Republicans on one side and Democrats on the other, but instead are interspersed because we recognize, given our important mandate, that we must work together in a bipartisan and indeed a nonpartisan way. During the time that Joe has been the chairman and that we have worked together, the committee has established a well-deserved reputation for bipartisanship, for thoroughness, and most important, for getting things done. I know the American people have been so frustrated with the gridlock that has prevented action on so many issues facing our nation. Well, for the most part, you do not see that kind of stalemate on our committee, and that is a tribute to the leadership of Joe Lieberman. That reputation for our committee of accomplishment and bipartisanship is the work of many hands, but Joe Lieberman's fingerprints are all over it. Joe has always based his leadership on his unwavering belief that the great challenges that America faces, such as combating terrorism, putting our fiscal house in order, and defending freedom, transcend party lines. The success that our committee has achieved in helping to safeguard our nation is the result of that nonpartisan, some might say independent, spirit that guides him. And those successes are many. From the landmark Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act to providing the tools to strengthen our first responders, to our extensive investigations into the flawed response to Hurricane Katrina, the fatal communication failures in the Fort Hood terrorism case, and our current scrutiny of the attacks in Benghazi, Joe Lieberman has always put country first. His actions are guided by deeply held principles and aimed toward progress. He has demonstrated his willingness time and again to risk his political career to do what he believes is right for America. Joe brings the same dedication to everything he does. Working with him on the Armed Services Committee, I know firsthand how devoted he is to our men and women in uniform and the deep respect he has for their service and their sacrifice. His leadership in bringing about the repeal of the discriminatory Don't Ask, Don't Tell law was nothing short of extraordinary, and it gives me great personal pride to have assisted him in achieving that important victory for justice. And it was vintage Joe Lieberman. He did what was right, he never gave up, and he got the job done. Throughout his many years of dedicated service, Joe has demonstrated the kind of character that America needs and that the American people deserve. It is not by coincidence that the PowerPoint slideshow that I present to students throughout Maine includes a photograph of Senator Joe Lieberman at work. The young pupils of today, who will be the leaders of tomorrow, could have no better role model than this leader of intelligence and integrity. A wonderful fringe benefit of working so closely with Joe for so many years has been the opportunity I've had to get to know his wonderful wife, Hadassah. She is a person who also demonstrates remarkable strength and compassion. Her devotion to community service spans a range of issues, from advocating for women's health and breast cancer research to providing women with opportunity through microfinance programs. The integrity and decency that Joe brings to public service stands on the unshakable foundation of his deep faith. It is telling that his retirement announcement included these wise words from Ecclesiastes: "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven." And so, in closing, I offer my dear friend this traditional Jewish blessing. May you live 120 years. While none of us expects to attain the longevity achieved by the prophet Moses, I am confident that the gratitude of the American people for the service of Senator Joe Lieberman will be everlasting.